Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Stock, and in this video we're talking about the summary of economic projections that's coming out following the FOMC meeting that takes place on March 21st and 22nd. I'm going to give what I think is going to be not only the message coming from the Fed, some of the highlights that I think that they'll have to say, but also some of the updated numbers. I have how I think it's going to go, and I have my commentary on why I think it's going to go that way in this video. So while I have you here on the channel, take a moment to look down in the description for the Moo link. By clicking on that link and signing up through my channel, you get access to up to 17 free stocks. Now, in order to get to those free stocks, you sign up, you deposit your money, $100 or more gets you 7 free stocks, 2 of which are AI draws, and they've been hot right now, and then also 5 other stocks valued up to $2,000. If you make that $1,000 deposit, you still get 2 AI draws and then 15 free stocks valued up to $2,000. So take advantage of the opportunity. It doesn't last forever. It ends with the end of March. It's your money plus more money, and it also helps support this channel so that I can keep bringing you news and information as I find it coming up with the financial markets. One final thing before we get started, if you want to hear more of my commentary, check out that link down in the description for the Patreon. Click sign up, get access to my Patreon exclusive content. I just put over an options play on there that I think is pretty interesting for my community members to check out as one of those exclusives. Also on Fridays, I've started putting out a newsletter that says about my sentiment on the week ahead and some of the important things that we have in the week and what's coming up for the markets. Take advantage of that link for the Patreon down in the description. We'd absolutely love to have you over there as part of the community. I'm Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Let's get right into the content. All right, so we got the summary of economic projections coming out in March following the FOMC meeting. So March 21st, March 22nd is the meeting. So March 22nd, I believe it's at 2 p.m. that we get that summary of economic projections coming out. And it says what the Fed expects to happen through the rest of 2023, the end of 2024, the end of 2025 with GDP. So the economic growth that we have here in the United States. Also, we get unemployment figures that the Fed expects, and then finally, we have inflation numbers through PCE and core PCE that are also projected, although long-run rates are not given. And then there's also that target federal funds rate for the end of each of those 3 years, 2023, 2024, and 2025. So let me put that up here. So what we're looking at, this is from December, and I've updated it for what I believe is going to happen with March. All those updates are in red, and so for the summary of economic projections, that is a mouthful. I'm just going to refer to it as SEP. So if I scroll down, here's what I think the message is going to be like. That inflation, we're still going to hear higher for longer, and when you see these asterisks here, it says those stabilizing. There we go, let's zoom in a little bit more. So inflation, higher for longer, those stabilizing thanks to February's reports coming out, the PPI and CPI. That can be good news for the March reports that come out in April. However, that'll be after the FOMC meeting, so we won't see them show up impacting the FOMC meeting yet. So I also think they'll mention that the job market is tight, but the tightness is structural, and then the banking system is not under threat of collapse, I think is one of the big things that Jerome Powell will come out and talk about, not necessarily in the summary of economic projections, but in his conference following the FOMC meeting's close on Wednesday, March 22nd. So I'll zoom out a little bit, and then I think we're also going to hear that the Fed believes that economic stability is paramount and that they are closely monitoring the banking situation and that they do not currently believe that broad systemic risks exist to banks. So that, I think, is going to be huge, that they're going to come out and support the banking system itself and try not to cause any more sorts of stirs or bank runs. So that leads me to point 3, which is that the Fed will increase rates by 25 basis points. And honestly, I think that they almost have to, because I think it sends mixed signals to do a pause, even though the pause is probably the appropriate thing, still sending that sort of message by pausing that says, we are in trouble here, could cause further bank runs, further instability, worse so than what the 25 basis point rate hike could do to the banks. So I think it's going to be a trade-off, and I think one of the reasons that they're willing to make that trade-off is thanks to the taxpayers, because it says right here, press in the event of a bank collapse. They have a big old bailout button that they can just mash on any time that they're ready to go should they need to. Now, we're not in 2008 conditions. We already coming through the pandemic. We're not in the greatest position for that, given all the inflation we had, all the money printing that we've already done. The bank bailout would not be a great thing to see at all, but I do think that it is one of their fallback plans following a 25 basis point hike. So I don't want to dwell on that. That's not what this is about. By the way, I did create that. So if you want to applaud my artistic skills using the preview app on my Mac, sure, hit me up down in the comments with that. So now down to the summary of economic projections itself. GDP, I think they're going to hold steady at 0.5. So I don't think that they want to push the idea of recession. However, I do think when it comes down to the range that we're going to see, the range broaden from going from negative 0.5 in December when they said that. I think for March, we're going to see all the way down to negative 1%. So a little bit more economic contraction possible and holding the upside steady at 1%. Unemployment rate, 4.6. I think we're going to hold that steady. I did before previously, I had that down at 4.4%, but with the chance for a slightly deeper recession coming from that, I did decide to bump that back up to 4.6. And then PCE inflation, that one, 3.5, thinking that the inflation is going to be a little bit stickier for us, that's going to be hanging around. And I did bump up the core inflation to 3.7, assuming that we don't see that same drop in services that we're hoping for by the time we get to the end of 2023. I think that median, when that comes out in March, I think that we're going to see that revised upward from 3.5 in December to 3.5 in March. And then I have the different range values over here as well, that we're going to go from 3 to possibly 4. So that upward end of that going from 3.8 up to 4. And again, these are my projections based on what the Fed has said, based on what's going on in the economy right now. And also don't forget that they don't want to cause any sort of panic of economic instability, especially things that could implicate that the banks are at fault for it. They don't want to push that message because it could cause further panic with banks, further bank runs, further instability, more bailouts possible. Like it's a slippery slope, and I'm sure that they don't want to be contributors to that. So I think they're going to be very careful about how they talk about the banking system and what they do with their rate hikes. I think they're going to do the 25 basis points in the summary of economic projections. I think is going to be minorly changed in a few ways. I think that the federal funds rate, that they're going to pull back from that 5.1 as a median number. And so I think part of that is I think we're going to see a lower value. So from 4.9 down to 4.4. And I also, in my last video on this, prior to all the banking disasters that we've had, I had this up at 6.1. So I brought that 5.6 back to even with what they had in December, and I brought that lower number of 4.9 down to 4.4, being that some of the committee members for the FOMC, for the Fed, might try to back that down, expecting a little bit more weakness. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see that even go down a little bit lower, maybe down to 4.1 even. I doubt that we would see 3 pop up there, but you know, anything's possible, I suppose. So I think end of 2023, the median, I think that's going to be revised down to 4.9 in March when the SEP comes out, and then 4.4, so up from 4.1. So thinking that we could have that stay a little bit higher for a little bit longer, and then tapering off from there down to 3.1. I apologize for zooming out there. Let me zoom back in. Yeah, even better this time. So sort of stabilizing over time, and I think we want to see that stability come back. With the federal funds rate getting things under control, especially taming inflation as stable price stability is part of their dual mandate. And then hopefully unemployment is also something that comes back a little bit stronger than what they see here. I only did for 2023. I did not go out to 2024 and 2025 for these numbers. I did do that for the federal funds rate. So over here, you can see the federal funds rate, how I have adjusted, how I believe that it's going to play out over time. And like I said, I had each of these at 6.1 as the high numbers, and I think 5.6 is going to be a little bit more appropriate given the uncertainty that we have with the banks. Again, I don't think that they're going to, before the banks happened, before when it was just high inflation, higher for longer, they need to be aggressive. I had more aggressive numbers. And now that the whole banking thing happened, I have less aggressive numbers. So I've pulled back from that. So if you watch my old video on the SEP for March, that one I think is worth checking out just to see how it changed from that one to this one. And that's my take on the SEP for March when it comes out next week. So let me summarize this. When I originally did my projections for the SEP for March, that was before any of the banks that recently went under had gone under, when it was all about inflation, when it was all about the aggressive Fed and trying to really tackle inflation, tame inflation, being higher for longer. And with the banks in there, I think the Fed needs to have pause. But it's tricky now because they need to have pause in a way that doesn't cause panic. And so When I say pause, I don't mean pausing the federal funds rate. I just mean that they need to really be super careful about what they come out, or what Jerome comes out and says following the FOMC meeting, and also when the Fed minutes come out. That'll be really illuminating when they come out in April for March's meeting. That's going to be something that we also really want to take a look at as well. That could honestly be a bigger catalyst because of the banking situation that we have, inflation situation that we have. It's going to be really interesting to see exactly what was said in those Fed minutes and how it changed from the previous Fed minutes at the end of February's meeting. So this was a tricky one. Honestly, when I did this, like I said, when I did it before, I feel like it was much easier, much less variability in it because we didn't have the banking system mess calculated into it. Now that we calculate that in, honestly, like I said, that's where it gets tricky. That's where it gets nuanced. What numbers exactly are going to be appropriate for taming inflation expectations, and what numbers are appropriate for not sparking fear with the bank disaster, further fear than we already have. So watch this when it comes out, March 22nd. You can compare my numbers, see if I'm anywhere close. I know I'm going to be watching this like a hawk to see what comes out for that, because that's going to be a big market catalyst day for us. And in my next video, most likely I'll talk about a review for this past week and also what I see coming up for next week in the markets. So thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate you watching this far through. Find that link down in the description for the Patreon to hear more of my commentary and get access to my Patreon exclusive content, and also to be a member of my private Discord community. We'd absolutely love to have you over there. Also, don't forget about the Moomoo link. Click it, sign up, make your deposit, get your free stocks. You're supporting yourself in that adventure, and you get the bonus of helping me out too. And I really appreciate everything you do, even if it is just watching this video to this point. If you like what I have to say, hit the like button, please. If you want to see more of my content, hit the subscribe button and make sure that you ring that notification bell to be notified anytime that my videos come out. I'm Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. We'll see you in the next video.